really communicate. It couldn't really have open, honest conversations with people because that just didn't have that skill set, which, yeah, good question. I think, look, for me, fundamentally, you have to be a good coach, but you've got to sell your product. You can have the best coaching program out there and what they're struggling with and then what it's taking them away from doing. But at the end of the day, you'd be doing yourself and others a disservice if you were not selling your product. So identify what you love and then identify what you loathe or dislike. That's going to be a surefire way to reduce overwhelm. I think it's important that they're invested in the journey and the process.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. Today we're joined with Dan Lawrence, who's coached and worked with over 30 champion athletes, elite level CEOs, and is a high performance coach. Dan, thank you for jumping on the podcast. It's an absolute pleasure. I'm really, really excited to learn and listen and find out more. Dan, could you just give us a quick round on your journey so far? Like, what inspired you over the last 16, 20 years to perform at the highest level, have the habits, the tools to get to where you are now?
Hi, Plan. And yeah, firstly, thanks for having me and absolutely appreciate the intro there. So I'm Dan Lawrence. I've got a number of roles. I'm a human performance coach. I'm head of performance and matchroom boxing. Had the pleasure of coaching some of the best champions or athletes on the planet who've turned into champions, NFL Super Bowl winners, undisputed boxing champions, and some of the biggest CEOs. And those systems and principles we can use for the everyday athlete, the normal gym goer, to really optimize their health and human performance.
Amazing. How did it for you? How did it transition, or was the vision and the goal for you always in terms of high performance, elite level coaching, and ultimately working with athletes? I know personal training and business owners sometimes can look at what you've done and be like, wonder if that's always been the vision. Was it like a master plan, or like how did that kind of look for you?
Yeah, great question. And the answer is no, that wasn't always the vision, always the master plan. I started as a personal trainer, I think at 17 years old, and didn't really know where I was going, what I was doing at that point. Was very introverted, couldn't really communicate, couldn't really have, open, honest conversations with people because that just didn't have that skill set, which, I've refined and continue to refine over time, but didn't really know beyond the next year or next 2 years as to where I wanted to go on that journey. What I did know at that time was I liked training. And I'm not going to sit here now, Plan, and say, I got into it because I wanted to help people and change the game in that regard. But that did evolve over time. So early on, it was a matter of I like training, and I started a profession that allowed me to train. And then over time, I realized, okay, I actually enjoy this, and it's very rewarding for me to assist someone in reaching their specific goals and outcomes and potentially changing people's lives. So now, what are we? Nearly 18 years later. The vision, without doubt, and it is to change people's lives across a global level. So it's taking that early kind of momentum that I got and realized that I had a real passion for this, and now working on my craft over time to say, actually, yes, we want to work with a huge number of individuals on a global scale to optimize their health and performance and make them perform better every single day.
Yeah. And one thing with you do very different is like going above and beyond in terms of thinking outside of the box and just looking at everything from a data perspective. People would see the DEXA scans, would see like the level of detail and attention that you and your team goes into. Have you always had that kind of like, I need to think outside the box to get people the best results, or like did it just evolve in terms of like?
Yeah, it definitely evolved over time, and I love the way you said there, above and beyond. That's actually my motto, and it's something that stayed with me for well over a decade, is to go above and beyond for absolutely everyone that you come across and just try and add value. And then if that opens doors, great, or if it just helps them on their day-to-day, then that's fine as well. So that is my motto. And in terms of like the DEXA scans, the blood work, and all of the other objective-led data that we use as part of our coaching program, no, that's certainly been more recent. We've always tried to have our finger on the pulse in terms of cutting edge technology, especially since working in professional sport. So I've worked in professional sport for over a decade at the highest level. I worked with George Groves in 2012, and even at that point, it was certainly not where it's at now from an objective-led point of view. But at the time, we were always trying to chase those percentages to optimize performance. And fundamentally, that's the goal, is how do we optimize performance? And if we use data and objectivity to do so, then that will give us a more bespoke plan for that individual.
Yeah, and it's probably, how do you find it in terms of coaching like elite level athletes, optimizing performance and data, or optimizing performance with data, and then relating that from a business perspective. I know a lot of people listening will be coaches looking to grow and move things forward. So like, how have you found it from a takeaway perspective? Maybe like as you optimize um, the small things from a data perspective, is that the same? Is there any kind of big things from a data perspective within your business, your day to day, you try and optimize for like moving that forward? Does that make sense?
Sorry, you go again on that question.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
a loaded question there.
Yeah. Sorry. So I guess the better way to frame it would be more, what's been kind of your biggest lessons from like elite level coaching, and then how it relates to the business side of things in terms of like growing now. Like, have you always like how, if that makes sense, in terms of coaching, and then how, like, what are your pillars from a business perspective to grow?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
No, thank you. Our pillars at Perform 365, we've got 4 pillars. Super simple: training, nutrition, recovery, and mindset. And I think as we shoot this episode, planning we're on the 3rd or 4th of January, there's lots of noise out there, especially for someone who's embarking on their fitness or performance journeys and early on in their journey. And it's the whole shiny object syndrome. They're just getting turned left, right, and centre by people making false promises that they can reach X outcome within 30 days. My advice to anyone doing that, if they are listening to this, is that, keep it simple. And that's exactly why we follow the KISS approach, keep it simple, stupid, of using our 4 pillars. If you can nail training, nutrition, recovery, and mindset, you will get closer to your goals. Of course, we have to, in elite sport and with some of the high performance CEOs, peel that onion back a lot further than that. But that's a very basic framework that anyone can take into their day to day. So that's our 4 pillar system at Perform 365.
Amazing. So with you, like, the biggest thing is you obsess over the delivery of the program, and that being incredible. A lot of the time, and a mistake I made as well when I was personal training, is it's easy to look at it like business wise, to look at the shiny stuff in terms of maybe like selling or content or marketing. But how much of a big role has like having the coaching fundamentals like broken down, and how much of the actual like quote unquote selling has that done for your business?
Yeah, good question. I think, look, for me, fundamentally, you have to be a good coach. And we're in the big bad world of online coaching these days, post COVID, and it's an ever growing market, which is great because there's people out there looking to help others who can really optimize their health and performance. But in the same breath, for me, you've got to have a bit of skin in the game and actually understand what it takes from a psychological point of view, not just from a physiological point of view, to actually help someone. And that's the slight concern, that online coaching is not just this level playing field. There's very different offerings out there, and we like to think that what we offer is a little bit superior to many others. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, actually.
Yeah, no, of course. I guess it's just more from a perspective of, yeah, like exactly that. It's just making sure the deliverables, if for coaching listening, is sky high, rather than always like, if you've got client results and referrals, like your program delivers on the promises, then you probably are going to be flying without needing to.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, you need to sell. So I think, look, sorry to go
Yeah.
off on a tangent there, but the first point of that question was, you've got to be a decent coach. You've got to have decent programming deliverables to ensure client fulfillment and retention is good. Otherwise, you're going to have this revolving door on the front end of just selling your products and getting people into your ecosystem when actually they realize that, wow, this isn't what I signed up for. I'm not getting great results here. I'm going to move on. So for me, you've got to have, you're absolutely selling your products. You've got to have lead generation, and then you've got to have client fulfillment. And I don't think you should have one without the other. We focused a hell of a lot on client fulfillment to ensure that everything in the back end integration, the systems, the automations, and the user journey is really watertight. And it's still something we're refining and will continue to refine day on day. We use accountability, competition, and community as our 3 areas to really drive that and hold people accountable so they get elite level service. But you've got to sell your product. You can have the best coaching program out there, but if no one knows it's out there, then what's the point? So you've got to sell. And it's something that I've had a bit of a tug of war with myself over the last couple of years of like, I'm not a salesman, but actually just talk about your products. And if people believe in what you're doing and want to be part of that, then great. But it's certainly a skill that I'm trying to refine I personally, actually, over the last couple of days, have done a couple of sales calls because it's been early on in the year, but I do have someone who takes those for me now. But look, you've got to be able to sell your products. Otherwise, no one's going to know how amazing your service is, and they're not going to get great results unless they're in your ecosystem.
Yeah, and it's one of those as well. Especially I find in the UK, sales, the word sales can be quite sticky, and it's something that people don't like to talk about. Like I know we spoke beforehand about like Dubai and like stuff like that. It's a very different mindset. What's been your kind of lessons from a sales, like quote unquote sales perspective over the last 18 years? Like what's been the biggest stuff that coaching listening to this can maybe take away, like as a rule of thumb, jumping on sales calls, selling in general?
Yeah, we look at pain point, struggle, desired outcome, and I got this from one of the guys over in Dubai actually. So props to them for it. But identifying their specific pain point initially, and what they're struggling with, and then what it's taking them away from doing, and the desired outcome that they're looking to achieve. So whether that's an aesthetic or performance orientated goal. So let's say their pain point is that they can't play with their child for more than 10 minutes with getting out of breath. I think we'd agree that's pretty intrinsically driven and powerful that they'd want to make that change. So that's their point of pain. The desired outcome would be that they're able to play with their child for an hour, 2 hours, or however long their child wants to play, and not be out of breath and be fully present in that moment. And this is why I coach. That's powerful. That really drives me as a practitioner to help someone live a better quality of life. So I think from a selling point of view, you're right. There is certainly a stigma around the word, and I've anchored a stigma to that word. I'm trying to transition and move away from that. But at the end of the day, you'd be doing yourself and others a disservice if you were not selling your product. So refining that skill of selling is actually very important, because if you believe in your product and you believe it can change people's lives, then the marketing and selling actually needs to be improved to allow the funnel of people to come to your shop window, so to speak, to increase.
Yeah, and that's where that, like you mentioned, from a framework standpoint, someone can easily go desired outcome, what's the struggle, and then lead it from there, more than over attaching, I guess, to.
Yeah, I think so, exactly. So yeah, more specifically with your question is like, how will you do that? I think build some form of relationship, build some form of common ground initially with the individual, and then just better understand exactly what they're looking to achieve. Don't make it about, and I made this mistake before, just reeling off every single aspect that's on your program. Okay, they don't care. They just care about the outcome. So they care about getting to the destination, not the flight to the destination. So I think that's really important as well, is don't list everything. Identify what they want to achieve by listening to them, and then maybe try and go a little bit deeper into those specific goals, and then merge one or two things in terms of programming deliverables that your program does that's aligned with what they actually want to achieve. And then before you know it, they're probably going to be a client.
Yeah, amazing. And it's that kind of relationship building and kind of client focus orientation of care and attention first. And one thing with your content, with your presence online, that I've picked up on, kind of I would say in a way, is your superpower is you lead from the front very well. So like your like attention to detail, excellence, professionalism, kind of focus really comes across in content, in conversations, and everything you do. How do you anchor yourself to those? Because I know like setting out goals, visions, you can set them out and forget about them sometimes, like 6 days, like 7 days later. Have you always anchored yourself towards like those goals and coming across like as the leader from the front, or how would a business owner?
Yeah, I think so. It's not fake, it's not false with the way I deliver and carry out my day to day. This is me, and professionalism and integrity are very high in terms of the standards and values that I hold myself accountable to. And I think if you're leading a coaching program, in my opinion, you should be leading from the front. You've got to be someone who lives and breathes what you're actually putting out there. Otherwise, the client or athlete could say, well, look, I think you need to do a little bit of that. So I live my day to day in a high performance manner, and I'm constantly trying to get better every single day myself. And I like to think that then carries weight when my clients and athletes see that I'm trying to optimize my performance. I'm trying to keep my finger on the pulse of latest technology, latest information, to inform my decisions, but that the trickle down effect will then mean that it improves them as well. So yeah, my standards, professionalism, that for me, that's just how I live my day to day, because it's that important to me. Some may not understand that, but those who do and really want to level up, then that's the fit.
Yeah, and that's, I guess that's where as well, like a big thing is being yourself as well is a big thing. Like being yourself, like not feeling like you need to be someone else online to attract the right people. So with the high performance traits, with a high performance mindset, what does like a day to day for Dan Lawrence look like currently? What are the kind of non-negotiable high performance traits, habits you've instilled?
Yeah, I love the word you said there, daily non-negotiables. That's something that we had a Zoom a couple of days ago with our clients to really set the tone and signal of intent for the year. And the task for them was to write down 3 to 5 daily non-negotiables. And something I will say, Plan, is that we don't want to overwhelm people. Going back to our 4-pillar approach, especially early on in the year, is don't try and do 20 things, because you're going to end up in failing. You know, you're not going to be able to do those on a day-to-day basis. And the problem with not doing those on a day-to-day basis is then you're actually impacting the view you have of yourself of them being a failure. If you execute on 3 to 5 things and you can consistently do them, and they're very simplistic every single day, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks down the line, you're starting to shape your identity as a high performer, a winner, and someone who sets goals and is able to achieve those goals. And that's very important. And that's why we can't go too big with these goals all the time or too lofty. I'm all about outcome. I'm all about setting the outcome. Absolutely, you've got to know where you're going, and that can be lofty. Excuse me, but once the outcome's been set, reverse engineer the process and then put the steps in place to reach that outcome. And that's where things like daily non-negotiables are very important. So 3 to 5 things that you do every single day, which you simply won't negotiate with, that are aligned with the longer term vision and the longer term outcome orientated goal. And some of mine may be, what do? I do training in some capacity every single day. So even if it's a non-training day, I'll do 10 minutes mobility in the morning. I had spinal surgery 9 years ago, so that's actually quite important for me, just to keep moving and grooving, especially in a world where we're spending the most of our day sitting down. So that's one thing that I do. The second is I monitor my nutrition in some capacity. I don't track my macros. I'm quite intuitive in terms of knowing where I'm at these days, but I monitor my nutrition because, again, that's aligned with my longer term goal of being a high performer, to be cognitively sharp and in the room. The third one is no Netflix before 7 p.m. And, I stand by that. If I'm watching Netflix at midday, the likelihood of me progressing my business and progressing to where I want to go is obviously a hell of a lot lower. And I do stand by that. So it's 7 p.m. In fact, the other night, it was 6:57. I didn't put Netflix on. I was just on the laptop finishing for another 5-10 minutes. So yeah, look, the goals have to be set initially. The longer term goal, you've got to know where you're going. One of my favorite quotes is, if one doesn't know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable, i.e. you're just going around in circles and treading water. So that's the outcome. But once you set it, reverse engineer and put small steps in place to reach that longer term vision. And that's where you can break it down into maybe 30 days. What does success look like over the next 30 days? We do this with our clients. How many workouts are we going to complete and we're going to hold you accountable to over the next 30 days? Right, once we've agreed that, perfect. Now we go back even further. What are we going to do every single day to win the day? Or what are our daily non-negotiables? And they're aligned with a longer term goal. And then we set those non-negotiables and they do them every single day without negotiating. And that's where they have to be very, very simple. They can't be too advanced. They can't have 20 things to do because they just won't apply them. If they can nail those 3 to 5 things consistently over 4 to 6 weeks, then maybe we add 2 more, maybe we add 3 more, and then they build momentum with those. Before you know it, they might have 10 things that they do, and the whole Harvard Business Study, 66 days to formulate a habit, they're starting to then become habitual with these things, and they're stacking habits on top of each other, and then they've changed their life over time, over a course of a 6 to 12 month period. And we know that 1% better every single day leads to a 37 times improvement over the course of a calendar year, which is incredible. That's night and day. You can literally change your life within 12 months if you apply these high performance principles.
And that's where as well, like you say, is not overwhelming yourself. Like you 37 times better just by being a little bit better every single day.
That's key, Plana. And yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that, is that don't overwhelm yourself. Don't try and do 20, 30 things. Keep it super simple and just build some early momentum. Start where you stand, identify where you're at, and then just stack some wins early on, build momentum. And then before you know it, if you are going back to the big C word, consistency, if you are consistent, then you're going to get great results.
Amazing. What what do you have, like how do you break it down in terms of personal non-negotiables alongside like business non-negotiables for yourself, or are the big tasks are just kind of is it more like the mindset tasks that are, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so we do break down personal and business exactly that, draw a line through the two. And well, we actually use health as well as part of that. So, yeah, personal, business, health could be the three. You might have three non negotiables for either of those. They're probably interchangeable with each other and they'll certainly help each other. So, the like lifestyle one is I've got to speak to my mum every single evening. That's just something I do. I call my mum every evening. I do have other things that I do, like I'm trying to learn Spanish. I have to do 2 Spanish lessons a week, so it's obviously not a daily non-negotiable. It's something I do on a weekly basis, and I'm very structured and systemized with that. But yeah, maybe choosing 3 for your health. So it might be as simple as 10,000 steps a day, quite an arbitrary number, but it will help through the principle of non-exercise activity thermogenesis, the NEAT principle. So 10,000 steps a day, monitoring your nutrition and doing training in some capacity. They could be your 3 from a performance point of view. Business could be that you're going to do a strategy meeting with a team at 9 a.m. each day, or you're going to reach out to 20 people with a cold outbound strategy, whatever it might be to aligned with your business. And there's your 3 there. And then you can have, whatever else, health, family, whatever that resonates with you in terms of your kind of buckets of what's important to you.
Yeah, amazing. What are your business non-negotiables, or have they changed a lot from? Well, yeah, what are your business non-negotiables, and we can kind of look at like the next part of that.
Yeah, business non-negotiables. So we have a team of 13 now, and thankfully now I've been able to delegate a hell of a lot of this, which I was the biggest bottleneck in my business for a long while and not willing to relinquish control. And I've now realised looking back in hindsight, that I probably should have delegated a lot sooner. There's a great book by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Kennedy, Who Not How. Don't tell me how to do something, find me someone who can do it. And thankfully we're in a position now that I can delegate that. So the kind of smaller mundane tasks, they're not done by myself. I try and do the big needle moving tasks. So in terms of my non-negotiables for a business is I've actually been very reflective as a business owner of late that I've got to communicate things better and not just make the assumption that people should know what to do. We had a bit of a running joke yesterday with a couple of team members. I remember watching a film probably about 10, 15 years ago, and I remember this one statement, and I won't say the specifics, but it's, no, I will. Assumption is the mother of all fuck-ups. It was by Steven Seagal. And so we've banned the word assume and assumption in our business now. Like, I don't want you to assume. Don't assume. Don't bring something to 90% done and then just assume that the other person then knows what to do. Take it over the line, 100% completion, move on to the next task. So yeah, that's just something that's very relevant after conversations yesterday with the team. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's that like I find as well, if you close a task off, it's no longer like 7 p.m. like you say, watching Netflix. It's on your mind. It's like, it's like 90% done. It's done. With delegating, what's been what was the kind of point for you? You're like, I need to delegate. Like, and how would you know it's time to delegate something before or when? Yeah.
Yeah, two things on that is we use the Craig Ballantyne formula of the love and loathe task. So identify what you love and then identify what you loathe or dislike. Draw a line through the middle, and everything that's on that side, if there's someone that you could find as part of the team that you could delegate that to, that's going to be a surefire way to reduce overwhelm, because we know that those small mundane tasks that need to get done and they're not getting done, they just build up, and eventually the volcano, if you like, the visual representation of that, erupts. So that's the first task that I do. I think, yes, a love and loathe, and then sorry.
Yeah, for sure. Like the love and loathe side of things is going to make it a lot easier. And I guess with the second part to it on that side of things, in terms of like leadership, how does leadership for you look like in terms of leading the team and then leading clients? Does it vary much? Is it different? What are the kind of key habits, key like stuff alongside assumption you have for your team from a leading perspective?
Yeah, from a leadership point of view, we set the tone every Monday morning with a team Zoom at 9 a.m. I actually do that on the bike. I've got a bike in my living room. The team are all okay with it, so I do some basic zone 2 cardio so I can actually hold a conversation. And that's with all of our teams, sets the tone. We all know what our deliverables need to be on a day-to-day basis. The team at the start of each day, as the week goes on, they put to get down 3 or 4 tasks that they're getting done throughout the course of the day. They sign out saying they've completed those tasks, or if they haven't, maybe they bleed into the next day. And in terms of kind of management of a team, it's something that I've refined. That I've got to become a better communicator and leader of a number of individuals. I feel like as a practitioner, I'm good at coaching someone in a one-on-one capacity, elite level athlete or CEO or other. But then managing a team of 12 or 13 individuals, that takes a slightly different skill set. And that's a skill set that I'm learning and refining as I go. And something we say as well is like, if someone asks the same question 3 times, whether this is a client or a staff member, we then make it an SOP. We make it a standard operating procedure. So whether we shoot a video or a Loom recording for that, so it doesn't then happen again. Because otherwise, if you're answering the same question 5 or 6 times, it becomes, again, very, quite infuriating. So yeah, but then that flips back to the business owners saying, well, we should have a system in place to rectify that problem. It's very much problem solution led. What is the problem? Okay, what's the solution for said problem? If it keeps arising, let's make that an SOP.
Yeah, and it then saves you the mental bandwidth, I guess, every time of checking it over. So with what was the kind of maybe one big lesson from like from before you took the first hire? Like, was there any kind of big lessons, big things you're like, oh, I wish I implemented, or what would be like the steps or SOPs you would actually have for your first hire within your business?
Yeah, so our first hire, outside of these set coaching teams, we have coaches, nutritionists as part of our team, was a VA, a virtual assistant, Mylene, who's an absolute whiz. She's the glue that holds everything together. And looking back and being very reflective, I certainly could have spent and should have spent a lot more time on the front end with her, explaining the business, explaining the system, explaining the values, and not just making the assumption that she should know how we need things to be done. So I live my day-to-day, as you said earlier, with like integrity, professionalism, and very high standards. To then just make the assumption that everyone lives that same way is not correct. So something I've now done, and what I'd recommend to the potential listeners if they are looking at making that first staff hire, is spend a lot of time with them on the front end. And then at that point of them finding their wings, there will then be hopefully an A player for you. Otherwise, if you don't spend time with them, you can't just make the assumption that they're going to be an A player and just know every minute detail of your business. So keep it simple as well. Don't give them 30, 40 things to do. Understand the business, understand your values, understand your standards, and understand what the vision is for the business, and make sure they're fully invested and immersed in that, and then give them some clear tasks. And then, of course, check in with them and make sure you hold them accountable to those tasks. Again, another area I could have got better in because I had a very minimal amount of time. So we've now got an operations manager who they feed into. So that's probably been a big thing for us planning with the business is we have the operations manager, then we'll have all the other staff feeding into her, Ashling over in Dubai. And then if it needs to be brought to me, it gets brought to me. If it doesn't, they can deal with it. And that's been a real key in terms of freeing up a lot of time, and my energy can then go into some of the bigger moving tasks.
Yeah, because you're so busy as it is, I can imagine if you've then got all the small tree stuff, it wouldn't work at all. So with the like vision side of things as well, one thing for like again from an A player perspective, I imagine because your vision is so high, your standards are so high, A players are much more drawn towards that, and they can grow within that. How would you spell it out, and how would you kind of demonstrate your vision, your mission, your values with new team members, and have that excitement built up for the 5-10 years to come?
I think it's important that they're invested in the journey and the process, and that they're a macro level thinker and not a micro level thinker, and they see the vision that you guys are going on. Of course, it's not going to be as crystal clear as you as the business owner because you're more invested in it, but something Craig Ballantyne again says is your values and vision drive every decision. I truly believe that. Like once you have your values and standards and vision, you put that in place, then everything feeds into that. And if there's a misalignment with it, just disregard it because it's not aligned with the mission and the longer term vision. So we have very clear written down on a PDF document of what that is. So for any new staff hire, we have our values, we have our vision, we have our mission. And then they're on board with that, and if they have any questions on that, we can of course elaborate further, so everyone knows that on the front end. And then I think the longer time they spend with the business, they have a better understanding of myself, the team, the level that we operate at, and then they can see whether they're aligned or misaligned with that, or we can see that dependent on how they're performing.
And that's where like they can see the hard work you put in, you lead them from the front every day, and it's like it's so much easier for them, everyone to pull in the right direction. Coming into the coaching side of things and some of the ideas from like the high performance and mindset side of things, with that, what have you found? Have there been any big like takeaways you coaching elite level athletes, and from a mindset perspective, you're like, oh, they do this one thing as a non-negotiable, they think a particular way that if we all apply, we could inherently get a lot better as well?
Yeah, I'll give you three. I think three things that stand out from an athlete point of view that any individual can bring into their business that they do differently to others that really stand out for me would be resilience, a burning desire to get better, and being selfish. And I'll explain. So resilience would be, if you do hit a hump in the road, which is inevitable, it's not a linear path. We're always going to have some issues along the way, of course. Otherwise, everyone would be doing it. It'd be very easy to reach certain outcomes. How do you react to that moment? Do you crumble and say, oh, I can't do it, and go back to bad habits? Or do you say, no, okay, this is just a small hump. I've identified it, and now how do I overcome it? And once you overcome it, you move on to the next one, you move on to the next one. So resilience is so key for a high performer, an elite level athlete, but for any individual if they are looking to reach specific outcomes, because it's never going to be a linear path. The others would be selfish. So something we say is to be selfless, you've got to be selfish. And putting yourself first as an elite level athlete is very important. You've got to sacrifice a hell of a lot, and you've got to be selfish to reach the goals that you're looking to reach. Otherwise, if you're trying to appease and please everyone, you're never going to achieve. Okay? So yeah, resilience, being selfish, and having a burning desire to get better. So the Carol Dweck research 30 years ago, growth versus fixed mindset. Certain individuals are very fixated in their ways, and this is where the environment dictates that specific outcome that they just don't think that they can learn. They don't think they can improve. They won't read the book. They won't listen to the podcast. But then there's the growth mindset. And for anyone listening to this, or anyone who reads books, or anyone who looks to engage in powerful conversations with others, they have a growth mindset, a mindset that they believe they can get better. And that's something from my athletes, without doubt, that I take and bring into everything that I do and everything that our other clients do, is they just want to get better every single day. And for them, it might not be reading a book. It might just be, how do I chase that marginal gain to get better? I was talking to one of my guys yesterday. We fly to LA on Saturday, John Ryder. He's got a huge fight over in Phoenix, Arizona. And he won't mind me saying this, that he's got a specific sheet that he puts on his pillow that's coming with us. So when we get to the initial apartment in LA, he can use that. So he has that element of home comforts. It's small things like that that many don't think about, but it's those margins that over time, as a single entity, won't mean a lot. But over time, and that plus another 10 of those small marginal gains can actually yield a very good ROI. So yeah, resilience, becoming better every single day, and being selfish at times.
With the pillow example, and it's a really interesting perspective. What do you find with that? Is it just like an anchor for him in terms of the home side of things, and is it almost having that obsessiveness more than anything around, I need to be at my highest performance, both mindset, body, and mind?
I think any elite level athlete will know that you've got to do a lot more than training. You've got to encompass anything that's going to give you the edge to optimize performance. So in terms of that specific, him bringing a certain cover for a pillow, I also believe that there's home comforts involved in there. You're going away for 4 weeks, not seeing your family, that you want to have some home comforts. So I don't know, maybe the texture, the feel, the smell, if there's some lavender spray or something that aids sleep from a performance point of view, but it might just make them remember or think about the environment that they feel most comfortable in, which is at home. So I don't know the specifics of that side of things. I think it was more so just, home comforts than anything else. But whatever works best, and this is the depth that we go in planning, is that we identify every aspect of the performance picture. And whether that's someone bringing a pillowcase, or whether that's, whatever else, a new pair of trainers, or, whatever it may be, Whoop wearables, then we're all ears, and if they like it, they roll with it, and it improves them, then brilliant.
And this is the one thing as well with those guys and that mindset. And the biggest traits is to people listening, like more like someone on the street, it might say, "Oh, this is too much." It's like, why is he doing that? But if it helps being 1% better, it's completely different. And that's where I guess as well, being in the right environment is key. Being around you and your team, and this is the norm, and this is the standard. For someone maybe doing it alone as a lone solo business owner at the moment, what are some of the stuff in terms of getting into the right environment? How important has that been for you to push and get to where you are?
Vitally important, and something I say, Plan, is environment dictates outcomes. I truly believe that. I'll never forget a Tony Robbins quote: "You lay down with dogs, you come up with fleas." It's, you are a product of the 5 people you hang around with most. Again, I do believe that, and I've seen that, and I'm living proof of that. Is that if all your friends are going to the pub 3 days a week, you're likely going to be going to the pub 3 days a week. Whereas the other side of that coin, if all your friends have that growth mindset, they're constantly trying to get better. They're in a WhatsApp group where they're talking about this podcast, they're talking about this book, they're talking about continual growth, and you see them most frequently, the likelihood of you excelling is far superior. So environment is so key. And even for some of our clients, we talk about them being high performing CEOs. They don't have a lot of time. So how do we create an environment that allows them to reach the outcome we're looking to reach without eating into the time that they simply don't have? And if I was to say that we want them to train 5 days a week at a gym that takes them 30 minutes to get to every single day, so that's an hour round trip, the reality of that is very, very low. In fact, I'd be setting them up for failure. So what we then do is say, well, look, to claw back time, we need to get 2 cardio sessions in per week. Let's purchase this bike and let's put it in the living room, and let's do 60 minutes twice a week. Can we do that? Yeah, Dan, absolutely, I can do that. It takes out that hour of travel time, and they can do it in the comfort of their own home. And then, okay, if we can do 2 extra sessions in the gym where we get total body work done, how does that sound? Yeah, Dan, do you know what? I can do that. I can do 2 sessions where I travel to the gym. Brilliant. Well, now we've got 4 sessions locked in on a weekly basis. If we're consistent with that, and then we have proper nutrition, proper recovery, we're going to get great results. And this is where a lot of people overcomplicate the process. If we go back to simplicity and creating an environment that allows them to thrive, then actually you can get great results. So going back to your question of how would like a business owner change their environment if they feel like the environment isn't really aligned to progression? And I'm not going to say just cut ties with all of your friends, but over time, you might have to transition away from certain people, just to talk completely frank. But reading, learning, and immersing yourself in continual growth, that's out there for anyone. And you don't even need to spend any money on it. You can go onto YouTube, you can listen to podcasts. So there's so much out there in today's world. There's, again, 2 sides to this coin, is that we're in an ever-changing world. We're in a world that's driven by technology and continual dopamine hits of checking the phone. But if you use it to your advantage, we've got whatever we want at the click of a button. So we've just got to change your mindset, identify where you're looking to go, get clarity with your goals, and build an environment that allows you to reach that. And I'm not saying it's as easy as that. It will take time, but everything is there for anyone to achieve whatever they want to achieve.
Yeah, and it's that thing as well. The more you think about the more you consume the information, the more it's like it's a part of you rather than just something you learn. And
Yeah, definitely. Well, we touched on identity earlier, and you do something for a week, you'll disregard it. You do that for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, it starts becoming habitual. So I think going back to how does this look on a day-to-day basis? Well, why not set a daily non-negotiable of saying, I'm going to read 20 pages a day, or I'm going to listen to 20 minutes of Audible a day, or I'm going to listen to at least 1 podcast a day. These are some of the systems we have with our elite level athletes when we do look at their mindset and continual growth. We set very simple systems. So we've got a footballer, when every time he does an away game, he has to read 30 pages of his book. And it's simple. He knows exactly what he's got to do. Every away game, 30 pages of his book, and he'll do that. It's a very simple system, but it's aligned with a longer term goal of getting better every single day.
yeah, and then that's again coming back into anchoring yourself, and it's 37 times better over the course of over the year. With the identity side of things, one thing I've looked into over the last in 2023 is just, and one quote I've obsessed about is, where the mind goes, the body follows. And I see and feel there's a lot of limiting beliefs we often don't realize when it comes to like what we're worthy of achieving, both body and business. Like, what do we deserve? How good are we to get there? What's been your kind of takeaway, your lessons with that for yourself, but also for your athletes, and how do you get them, if they do have them, to break through and push on and achieve more?
I think limiting beliefs, high performer or not, elite level athlete or other, every human has them in some capacity. I think everyone would probably agree to that at certain points. And we go back to environment and it's seeing what's actually possible. If your environment showcases people who are achieving at the highest level and are aligned with the goals that you have, well, then the limiting belief you had prior to even being in that environment is completely debunked because there's a reality to it. So going back many years to Roger Bannister, the sub 3 minute mile, I think it was, and no one said it could get done. It couldn't get done. It was impossible. But then Roger Bannister did it. Well, then the next, 90 days, I think another 30 people did it. So it showcased that limiting belief was holding everything. One person did it, and then everyone started doing it. So if you don't know that it can be done, then the limiting belief is likely going to be more solidified. Whereas if you then change your environment to showcase others doing what you want to do, well, that limiting belief over time will be completely debunked because it's actually possible. So then you've got to work out how you can actually reach the specific goal. So for me, environment is key, and controlling, going back to the Professor Steve Peters, controlling that inner chimp. If it comes out and says, oh, you can't do this, then it's just a matter of having the body of work and proof of concept to showcase you can. When you've done the reps and you've changed your identity over time, that for me will quieten that whole imposter syndrome and limiting belief. If you turn up and you haven't done the reps, you haven't done the work, well, the limiting belief is going to be a hell of a lot louder, and you're going to really struggle to quieten that. Whereas if you've done the work, you've done the reps, with certainty you can do what it takes to reach whatever the goal is. Going back to one of my elite level athletes, let's say a boxer, come fight night, of course they're going to be having these doubts, self-doubt. Everyone has it. But if they've done the work throughout the 10 or 12-week training camp, they've left no stone unturned. Every single day they've tried to get better. They focus on their training, nutrition, recovery mindset. They've been all in for an extended period of time. They've sacrificed, like leaving the family at home. Then that imposter syndrome or limiting beliefs or potential fear, they'll be able to control that a hell of a lot better and potentially use it to fuel their fire. You've got to do the work, and that will quieten any imposter syndrome and limiting beliefs, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it comes to mind as well. I imagine one story for me that comes to mind is like, you can fail. Like, I lost like a bodybuilding show when I was like 18, 19. I was like, it's the worst thing. But looking back, one thing that did help was like, actually I ticked every single box. I did the best I could. So even then, business or body, if you've done the work, then there's nothing that you can kind of, the mindset and worry about, so it's a lot less as well.
Exactly, and spot on, because sometimes, my fighter might lose. But as long as we know hand on heart that we've done everything right to give him the best chance to win, boxing, especially football, whatever sport or bodybuilding, like, it's chaotic, a chaotic environment. There's lots of moving parts. You're going up against other humans. So you don't know what the outcome is. Just because you've followed the plan doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the outcome that you desire. But flipping it back would be, if you didn't have a plan, you didn't do the work, the likelihood of you reaching the outcome is far, far lower. I'm sure you'd agree. So I think walking away from that moment, reflecting, yes, and then saying, you know what, I did do everything right. I did give everything. I didn't leave any stone unturned. I can sit with that. I didn't get what I wanted from it, but I learned a hell of a lot. And now I can take those lessons into the next time I do it and refine maybe a couple of things to then get the desired outcome.
Yeah, exactly. That, like you say, it just then makes it so much easier to not worry about failure. And the environment side of things, for people listening, the first thing is listening to the information, podcasts, audio books. Where do you fit the speaking to people, putting yourself in the room? Because I know when you first start, like, you haven't got like the credibility in a way to go out and find people that are like huge business owners and speak to them or get their WhatsApp. Do you find it's first information, then when you're good or better with both business and body, that's when you can kind of start getting into it?
I think you can start getting into it at any moment, any point. And if you are looking to try and get in a room with people who might be perceived as superior to you and where you want to be, go in with the viewpoint of how can I add value to this individual? And we talk about this as part of my mentorship. If someone's got 1 million+ followers on social media and you've got 1,000 followers, many would say, well, how can I add value to them? Well, a way that you might be able to add value to them is they've certainly got a lot of followers. They likely got a high email list and they might not be doing regular emails. Well, what about if you're a more credible and knowledgeable practitioner than someone who just merely has followers? And I'm not interlinking the two, but generally speaking, some people who have huge following don't actually know too much. And then the one with the lesser following may actually know a lot, but they haven't been able to market their product. So what about writing some blog posts for them? What about writing some high value emails for their email list that will help them grow and build their business further with their huge following? And then over time, you can use the Russell Brunson concept, the founder of ClickFunnels, of borrowing a brand. You can leverage the 1 million+ followers and feed them and funnel them into your 1,000 followers. And before you know it, over time, you've got greater eyeballs on you that potentially can get people into your ecosystem and buying into your coaching program. So I think going in with the viewpoint that I'm just going to add value, not trying to take, is a good way of doing it. You've obviously got to identify contextual to the situation of how you can provide value for the individuals that you're looking to be around. I think as well, learning and upskilling every single day is something that someone can do the second they wake up in the morning. So doing that alongside then trying to get in the room with the right people would, for me, be a surefire way to succeed. And backing yourself over time, appreciating that you don't have all the answers, and listening and absorbing the information, being a sponge early on, being a good person, having good energy about you. People, resonate with people and like having good energy. They don't like someone who sucks energy out of them. So if you are that person, see how you can add value to that individual in different ways. I heard Daniel Priestley talk recently, the author of Oversubscribed plus many other books, and he was saying about older entrepreneurs, like billionaires, I think he was talking about, having someone younger around them. That's the thing that they're missing at the moment, is someone who's on the proverbial come up, who's climbing the ladder. They're there, the older guys, they've made it. And actually they like that energy. They like the person who's trying to get better every single day. Why? Because it reminds them of themselves back in the day when they were doing the same. So again, it's identifying what gap does that individual have. And many would say, well, a billionaire who's, achieved so much over the last 50 years, they don't need anything. Well, actually, maybe I can add a bit more to you in terms of energy, in terms of drive, in terms of motivation that you can then, get some joy from and satisfaction from.
Yeah, and it's that as well. Like I'm sure most business owners can see all the message requests they get in terms of people always asking. It comes across, and it's like you don't want to be a part of that. But if you just go in with a give mindset, it's like no one really does, and it's that mindset of like there's more than enough if you just give, like rather than always being like there's not enough and being.
Yeah, definitely. And the law of reciprocity is that it's not that you're giving to get, but if you do give something, general human nature is to say, oh, wow, that person gave me something of high value. I'm at least going to send a reply to them, or I'm at least going to engage in a conversation with them. Some, of course, won't, but I think it increases your percentage rate of replies if you do go in and give them something. We've got something today actually launching at 7:00 tonight called the January Kickstarter, which is an eight-part mini course to help people in January. And of course, it's a lead magnet. Of course it is. I'm not going to sit here and say it isn't, that we can then potentially get their email data, nurture them. If they resonate with our content, we can provide loads of value in the emails. And then if they are so wishing to embark on a health and performance journey, then the likelihood of them signing up with us is substantially higher than anyone else. But even if they didn't sign up, we're at least giving people some good value that can then potentially improve their lives. So I think, don't give to get, but try and add value on the front end. The likelihood of you then getting is substantially higher.
Yeah, and it's one of those as well from a mindset. I heard someone recently, it was the mindset I had as well. It's like, I don't want to give away too much, but ultimately you can never give away from a coaching perspective. You like even your stuff, the more you give away, like you can't give away the biggest things, which is like accountability, support. So you can never give away too much on.
Yeah, spot on. And that came up on a podcast yesterday. So I was smiling when you were saying it, Planan, is that for us, we give away so much. We did 12 days of Christmas on Instagram recently, where they're educational videos of fundamental movements around mobility, strength, core, hypertrophy, whatever other other things we threw out there, and they were really well received. But they took a lot of time, they took a lot of effort. The team had to edit the videos. We're now launching today the January Kickstarter, which is, I believe, probably our best resource that we put out there for free at this present moment. We've done a number of ebooks. We've got the Athletic Entrepreneur, we've got the Entrepreneur's Guide to Unlocking High Performance. And these all have videos embedded into them. They are quite literally better than many people's paid products. And Hormozy says, make your free products better than most people's paid products. So you're completely right. Many would say, well, Dan, why are you giving all of this away for free? Because that's not our coaching program. Our coaching program has that plus 100x in terms of the value that it provides. And our coaching program provides accountability, community, and competition alongside proven world-class methods that a free lead magnet certainly won't do. It will give them a taste and a flavor of what we're all about and the methodologies that we use, but it won't give them anything more than that. If they do resonate with that content, then they may reach out and say, do you know what? I really like this. I really like the way you delivered that. I really like your philosophy. Evidently, I've seen the work you've done in pro sport. I'd like to know a little bit more about your coaching program.
And it's always that as well. It comes across in everything. Like if you're holding back, people sense it so easily. Like if you're holding back any kind of key information, whereas you give it all away out there, people can take the information, they can apply, and people probably get amazing results from it. Like definitely get amazing results from the information, the free stuff, and then they'll just want to push it forward even more by working with you rather than having the people that, from a mindset perspective, might not be there.
Definitely, and we're living in such a market that is incredibly saturated in the performance coaching or online coaching or whatever the domain is. So how do you differentiate yourself from others out there? Well, you can't just be guarded with your information. If you think you can actually help people, put something together, give it to them as a free resource, see if they resonate with it. And if they do, it might then lead to a conversation where you said there that if they've got great results with it, the likelihood of them messaging you and saying, Planen, really liked your guide to whatever, and I got great results, just want to say thank you. Then your reply may well be, no worries, well done for applying it, great work. If you'd like to know a little bit more about the services we offer, then which takes that and gives a lot more, then I'm more than happy to have that conversation, and then everyone wins.
Yeah, amazing. With that side of things, again, business specific, with your mentorship side of things, you do. How does that work for you in terms of pillars? Like, what's the bird's eye view for the mentorship you do with your guys? What's the vision with it as well?
Yeah, our mentorship's called Elite Coaching Consultancy, and we've run it for near on 3 years now. We're in our fourth iteration of it. It's a 6-month mentorship, and the differentiator here is that we work with very, very good practitioners. We don't just accept anyone. They have to have a minimum of 2 or 3 years coaching experience, and there's huge mentorships out there that always talk about scale, always talk about selling, always talk about money, which are absolutely fine, by the way. But ours is a little bit different. Of course, we want them to grow their business. Of course, we want them to build, and they do. Some of the progress they've made is incredible, and it's very fulfilling for me as a practitioner. But I built it because I didn't really know where to turn at a certain point, and then I hired mentors, and I literally improved where I was going at a much greater rate. So, we have performance nutritionists, performance chefs, physiotherapists, strength and conditioning coaches, personal trainers, gym owners. And it goes back to my values. People resonate with me in that regard because my values are aligned with their own in terms of integrity, in terms of professionalism. It's certainly not a get-rich-quick scheme. It comes from having the burning desire to help others. That has to be it. And everyone on my mentorship has that same thing. And then it's a matter of how do we build your brand, showcase your message, and then others see that, resonate with it, and then you get them into your ecosystem to change their lives. Because it's all well and good having those values as a practitioner, but if no one knows your product's there, what's the point? So then it's merging the two together, being a very credible practitioner, and then actually people knowing about your product and wanting to be part of your coaching program or whatever the deliverables are of what you offer. So yeah, that's the crux of it. 6-month mentorship. We work with some incredible practitioners, and I'm talking people who work for organizations, people who work with professional teams, and it's just a matter of them building their business that's aligned with their values to have real impact on a global level.
And then like you say at the beginning, it all ties in because you've got one side which is actually the coaching and being a great practitioner, that then feeds the confidence to do the second thing because you've got the daily non-negotiables. I know one thing you mentioned was building a brand. You've done it in completely from an integrity and professionalism standpoint with your stuff. What are the kind of tips, what are the kind of frameworks you would share for a coach looking to build a brand online in 2024 now?
Yeah, I think it's got to go back to what really drives you, who you are as a person, and also how you want to be perceived by others. But the last part can't be the main driver of, oh, I'm just doing this for extrinsic validation of how I want to be perceived by others. It has to be aligned with who you are as a person. Be yourself, be real. And if people resonate with it, great. If others don't, fine. They can go and, find someone else out there. So you've got a number of people out there who do things very differently, like a James Smith, for example. That's not my way of delivering things, but a lot of people resonate with him, which is great. And he's got a coaching program or a mentorship or whatever that is aligned towards the price point of the individual that he works with. Ours is very different. Ours works with high-performing individuals who are looking to chase small percentages to really optimize their health and performance. That's led by data. Going back to the mentorship as well, it's for high-performing practitioners who are looking to build a business that's aligned with their core values, aligned with integrity. So you can see there's this common trend across every arm of my business, but it fundamentally comes back to who I am and what I represent and what my values are as a person. And like I say, for some, I might be too intense. For some, they might say, I'll have a day off, go and drink some alcohol. But then, that's not needed from me. I know exactly who I am. I know exactly what I'm trying to do. And I know those who are part of our coaching program will resonate with that and they'll get whatever results they want, going back to because I will go above and beyond for every individual that I come across.
Yeah, and it's that as well, isn't it? Like from the very beginning, it's not being afraid to stand out and be yourself. Like, I guess you can look like a new coach. When I was personal training, you can look at James Smith and think this is the only way. He's got a huge audience, but if you speak your truth in your tone, it'll resonate with the right people.
Definitely. And listen, hats off to James Smith, absolutely brilliant what he's doing and how he's, come across there. But there is then this growing trend of followers or individuals who are trying to, be his understudy and do the things the way that he's done. But he's done that by leading in that manner. So those people then, maybe it is aligned with who they are as people, but for some, they're just, just copying. I don't think that's the best way to do it. I think you just got to be yourself. And if it is delivering it in that way, brilliant. All props to you. I wish you all the best. But just be aligned with your own individual values and build something that's aligned with that. Because otherwise, you just get found out.
Yeah, and from your journey, what have been your biggest business takeaways? Like the biggest lessons if you could sit back across your 17, 18-year-old self getting into personal training, what would be your biggest lessons, takeaways from business, from personal training? And
yeah, biggest lessons are be true to yourself, try and do something that's aligned with where you want to go and what truly drives you. Don't just do it to appease others. And
yeah, amazing. And again, that's really powerful. But yeah, wrapping up here with the podcast, there's been so much value from a perspective of business, from a high performance, everything from there's been so many big takeaways. Dan, where can people find you from both a mentoring perspective for the practitioners and then also any elite level CEOs and business owners looking to take their own health performance to the next level?
Firstly, Plana, thanks for having me. And Instagram, my personal one is at DanLawrence365. We have Perform365 as well as our business one. And we've actually just about a week ago launched at Elite Coaches Consultancy, I believe it is. I probably butchered that, for Elite, just to separate them these days because I felt like it was just a mixed message on my main page.
Yeah, the links will be down below of this video as well. But yeah, thank you for listening, guys. Dan, thank you for joining the episode.